Hey guys, I was just on live with my friend Chris Aguilar, and I haven't been on in so long because I've been kind of caught up in my own challenges. And going on with Chris, I was reminded, which I knew I've been missing being here doing this kind of thing. So I'm back on live here, and just, wanting to ponder and share with you and maybe interact with you about this thing called mental health, right? That I realize more than ever lately is such a for real thing, an aspect of all of our lives. I feel like the conversations about mental health over the years in my lifetime, in my experience, and I'm someone who early on I realized I was interested in psychology and things like our mindset and started studying those things, went to graduate school in psychology, studying things like counseling and therapy and research, learning and development. And yet I'm still kind of amazed to see how much mental health is part of my mission, really, and passion and interest, and why it's so important, why it's a topic that is worth exploring and expanding. And the truth of the situation that many of us, I would propose, are often struggling with our mental health. And even that term, mental health, what does that mean, right? And how much does that health of our mind, like how we're using the mind, the healthiness of it, right? How our mind tends to function, which has so much to do with our mood, right? And also absolutely impacts our physical body, right? And I almost could have made this video about how our mental health so often is creating our physical health, right? Or the reason for our physical symptoms. And I get those reminders as much as anyone from my body, reminding me when I'm not being so healthy with how I'm using my mind. So just wanting to share my awareness that our mental health, wherever we feel like we reside in the spectrum, whatever we might identify as, whatever labels we might associate with, whatever emotions or sensations or experiences we might struggle with more or less. I feel like one healing aspect is to embrace that we all have emotions and we all experience things like anxiety and depression, for instance. And yet, yes, those things can also get to a level where they become debilitating, right? And really can impact and limit our ability to function. But this is why I see it's so important to stay on top of the momentum of our mental health and to realize that we have this thing called our mental health, and that how we're feeling, how we're functioning has so much to do with how we're doing in our mental health in so many ways. Partly because we know that what we're thinking is a lot of what's creating how we're feeling in our emotions, right? And again, also creating a lot of what's happening in our body. A lot of us know that. But also, we can also see, if we want to embrace our creative power and become aware that it's all energy, that what we're thinking, how we're thinking is affecting what we're experiencing and even creating what we're experiencing, right? And part of the momentum of what's happening in our lives, good, quote unquote, or bad. So that mental health is shaping so much of our experience, right? not only in how we feel in our moments, emotionally, physically, and then that also means energetically, but that also correlates with what we're experiencing, what we're creating. So it's important, it's powerful, it's, I want to say, serious stuff. And I'm just so curious about what can we do to thrive in our mental health? What can we practice? It does seem to be about having a practice and having ways each day, at least, that we're checking in with how we're doing in our mental health, and even doing things that may enrich, replenish, support our mental health. And again, what do we mean by mental health? Some of that, in my opinion, now means like how we are using that mind, right? How we are thinking, what we are thinking about, what we are focusing on, which does include what we're saying, right? Out loud into ourselves. So really taking a look at that as an aspect of our mental health and the direction of that aspect of our experience, right? Inner conversation we might be having, and what sorts of conversations, and then how we're using imagination, I'm seeing as a big part, an aspect of our mental health, right? And that, especially if we want to embrace from personal development teachers and even spiritual teachers, that mind, that imagination is our creative power. That when we can look at how we're using the mind, how we're imagining, as so important. And then, though, and this is something that I've been struggling with, when we start to take a look at how we are using the mind, which is what we're doing with all forms of meditation, for instance, is we're taking a look at what's happening in our mind more, right? What we're thinking about, what we're focusing on, what we're imagining. And that can be hecka humbling and hard to see what we're actually doing in the mind. And that's what I feel like I've been at, like really seeing how much I misuse my mind, how much I am not being functional with how I'm using that mind. So it's becoming apparent to me that that's what I feel like we're talking about with mental health, right? Is how we're using our mind, how we're thinking, what we're thinking about, what we're focusing on, what we're imagining, and the healthiness of that, right? The helpfulness of that, or potential harmfulness. And fortunately or unfortunately, we can always tell the nature of what's happening in our minds, right? By how we feel, right? Emotionally and physically. And also with, I would propose, what's happening in our lives, right? Is often a reflection of what we've been doing in the mind and how healthy or not healthy that's been. So just really wanting to ponder, propose, and share that I'm really realizing more than ever, as much as this has really been a focus so much of my adult life, this study of mental health, and again bringing it out of just a conversation about people we think of with diagnoses or labels who are getting medical attention or not. That's one aspect of mental health, right? But that truly we all have mental health, and it plays a really important role in our lives, how we feel, how we function, again, physically, emotionally, energetically, and even what we're experiencing and creating. And that here's some of the evolved perspective that I feel like I'm coming into, is that it's something that we want to take care of. It's being influenced by the world anyways. That's part of probably what's created our ill mental health, right? Is the ways we've been conditioned, the messages we picked up from culture, and unknowingly through things like our families, right? And just ways that humans misuse the mind, right? That we've learned and taken on and adopted. And so, yeah, flipping that to what can we do to increase the healthiness of how we're using the mind and support our mental health, take care of our mental health, and what does that for us? And so, yeah, I'm just realizing how much that's important, what I'm passionate about, what I'm interested in, and how much, when we bring in things that we can do, practices that can help us build our perspectives and our psychology. So certainly what we're focusing on, what we're reading, what we're listening to, who we're engaging with, ways that we can, take care of the mind and even quiet it, redirect it, things we can do through things like meditation, right, and mindfulness, and then even things that we can do with the body and the physiology that impact the mind and the mindset and the mental health. And again, that it's all energy. So it's about, in the end, taking care of our energy. And that's where I like to bring it back to how we're tuning ourselves. It's tuning you. And that's, with this thing, mental health, that's what it's about. It's something that's fluid and maybe changing, and maybe a lot of us do have somewhat of a polarity within us, right? Good and bad, right and wrong, evil and right, that we could be tuning into. So it's also like, what are we tuning into? How are we tuning ourselves? And that, to really see that we're doing these things for our mental health, maybe most of all, and that's actually what's going to impact our physical health, is taking care of our mental health, much less impact just how we're feeling in our moments, how much we're able to enjoy life, what's happening in our relationships, and in what we're creating and experiencing, right? So mental health, it's for real, it's a thing, and excited to keep exploring it with you, sharing what works and how we can take care of and improve our own mental health for our own benefit and for everybody around us, right? So thanks for listening. Hope this is helpful to you. Have a good day out there, guys. Namaste.